Hello everybody, this is Yoko's Anime Reactions, and this is going to be my review for My Hero Academia Heroes Rising movie. Ah boy. This essentially is supposed to take place at the end of Season 4, but it's apparently, from what I've heard, it takes place a few years in the future, which makes no sense since seasons 5 and 6 happened and the beyond for the manga, which makes you wonder if the movie is canon. It shouldn't be canon with all that information, but from what I've heard, apparently it might actually be canon to the actual show, but it makes no sense because in the movie, Shigaraki doesn't have his white hair. He's not upgraded. He doesn't have All for One. Ignore that. Deku doesn't have his other quirks. Bakugo gets One for All. But, well, he doesn't remember that, but still. Shoot. I don't remember if there was anything else. Well, then again, that would spoil things for seasons 5 and 6, so of course they couldn't add that stuff in. But like I said, that should have made it not canon to the story. I don't know. Maybe it's a parallel universe thing. I don't know. But yeah, this is one thing where essentially the kids get to be pro heroes for a short time on a place called Nabu Island that's like south of Japan or something. And the place is nothing really is there. There's nothing really that should draw a villain there. So essentially, ignore that. Like I said, that's a saw going. They're putting in the tile in the bathroom across from my room. So they're cutting some of the tiles because the bathtub is curved. Anyway, let's see. What was I saying? But yeah, there should be nothing there that should warrant villains showing up. There's hardly anybody there. There's nothing worth stealing. So you would think that sending the kids there shouldn't be that big a deal. And for a time, it isn't a big deal. They just do simple jobs, getting to know the people on the island, while Bakugo sits on his ass and just reads the entire time because he's waiting for the real hero work, which, if the villains hadn't shown up, would never have happened. But yeah, Deku ends up meeting a little boy named, I think, Katsuma? I was trying to make sure I was pronouncing it right. And he wants to be a hero, but his sister doesn't want him to be because that's dangerous, obviously, and we can relate, and Deku can relate to that. And when we find out what his quirk is, I was thinking, well, he can go into the medical field if hero work. He can work under Recovery Girl or something. I wonder what the entrance exam test would be for someone going into the medical field, because it's obviously not combat. He can't do combat. Unless he was able to train himself in strength to be able to somehow withstand the entrance exam. I don't know. Anyway, we find out that there is a villain out there that has All for One's quirk, but it's limited. It's limited to only 8 extra quirks in addition to his own. What's his original quirk? Could somebody tell me, please? But whatever his original quirk is, it hurts him to where it causes him damage. And you can tell when it causes him damage, you can see purple lines going up his body. God, now I gotta edit this dang thing. And this is already taking way too long. I'm not even gonna probably get this uploaded until I get back from my friend's house. Anyway, what was I saying? Anyway, using his quirk causes him damage, and he goes around gathering other quirks, and he thinks he ends up finding a quirk that he can use, and that person ends up being, Katsuma's, and, dang it, I can't remember how you pronounce her name, his sister's, their father, essentially. But it doesn't work on any other type blood beat. He realizes that, quirks are obviously hereditary at times. So his children might have a version of the quirk that would work for him. And it turns out that quirk is, dang it, what was it? Cell acceleration, where essentially it can essentially heal your body on a cellular level. And cause your body, your regeneration to be better, essentially. And so he essentially figures out where they live and heads there and immediately attacks the harbor and destroys a lot of it. And the night before, Katsuma had shown up and told them that there was a villain attacking, and Bakugo and Deku had been outside, and Bakugo immediately grabs him and heads off to where the villain was at, and immediately tries to stop it, and he realizes that it's an illusion because it doesn't have a shadow. And he essentially gives them a stern talking to in the usual Bakugo fashion. That you don't go pulling this kind of prank on a hero because we got better things to do, essentially. And Deku has to essentially restrain Bakugo from attacking them, which I found funny. And later on, when the harbor gets attacked, she tries to call them and tell them that there's a villain attacking, and Bakugo answers this and tells them, I recognize, I know it's you, we're not falling for this again. And Deku takes the phone from him, and asks her what's going on, because she knows not to pull that stunt again. Because, Bakugo will probably hurt her if she did. Or he might try to anyway. But before he can get any information out of her, the phone line goes dead. And nobody else gets a phone signal. So now, they're essentially cut off from the mainland. And Mineta, Aoyama, and Toru end up running into a villain that can turn things into his own little personal puppets. And use it to attack them. They try to hold him off, but obviously only Mineta and Aoyama can really do anything because Toru doesn't have her thingies on her body to be able to, and even if she did, what would they even do? And there's another villain that ends up attacking the beach where Sue and the others are. And when the others get back, Tokoyami shows up and tells them, there's a villain at the beach, and we find out that the villain is in the shopping district, and everybody splits up to go and help. And Bakugo ends up getting captured by the mummy guy, but sacrifices one of his gauntlets to get free, and kicks the guy's ass. With minimal damage, apparently. And beats him, and they capture him. And the others try to fight the Chimera guy, I think he's named Chimera. But, it doesn't go too well. However, while everybody else is distracted with all that, Deku goes to try and find Katsuma and his sister because he realizes that something might be going on with them because he wants to make sure they're safe. And 9 finds them, but before he can try to take his quirk, Deku rushes in, thankfully, and gets them out of the way, and tries to take 9 on head on. That doesn't work, and he tries to actually take Deku's quirk, but considering what we know about the quirk, that does not happen because he doesn't have enough slots to take it, because he would have to have enough to get all, shoot, since All Might and Deku are quirkless, that would leave, I guess technically you would count the original holder as quirkless too, because I don't know if you would count the original holder, so I just say would not count the original holder. It's 6 quirks he would have to have room for, and he does not have room for all of them, so he could not take it. And Deku's getting his butt kicked. Bakugo rushes after Mitsuhara, I think that's what her name is, whatever her name is. She creates a gigantic blow-up doll-looking illusion of a bloodied-up Deku for everybody to see, and Bakugo, I guess, saw this and rushed in and tried to fight this guy. They both end up getting their butts kicked. And thankfully, the others end up showing up, but the good thing about that, though, is that 9, his body is starting to, I guess, break down more because it's damaging him more, and he wasn't able to fight, and they were able to get the kids to safety, and Bakugo and Deku out of there as well because they're both unconscious. What I found amusing is that when Uraraka uses her quirk on the guys, she could have used her quirk on any part of Deku. His arm, his head, his leg. No. She touched his crotch. What the fuck, Uraraka? Were you not paying attention to where you touched? Were you just in that bit of a hurry that you weren't paying attention and you just touched the first random spot you could reach? I don't even think she realized she did it. Because we didn't get a scene of her realizing she did that and blushing horribly and floating away. But yeah, at least not on camera anyway. Anyway, afterwards, everybody is recovering from all this, trying to get all the citizens, food, shelter, trying to get everybody to rest. Momo and Kaminari are pushing their quirks to the max. Momo's trying to create, as many batteries, and I guess. And Kaminari's trying to charge them as much as he can, and he ends up, going into his dirt base moment. And, what I don't get is why Momo, once she ended up pushing herself past her limit, why didn't she just start eating? Because isn't that what gets her quirk back up and running? Lipids? And what makes lipids is fat, and what makes fat is food. I mean, they had at least until daybreak to get all this stuff taken care of. Why didn't she do that and rest? I don't get it. Anyway, Katsuma comes in and explains, his quirk, and he starts healing the guys. And after a while, he ends up, I guess, healing their broken bones because the doctors were able to close the wounds, but they couldn't heal the broken bones. And he ends up telling the others why 9 was there in the first place. And Deku and Bakugo come in, fully healed, and they essentially tell Katsuma, yeah, you're not letting this guy get your quirk. And they come up with a plan to try and stop this guy. And for the most part, it kind of works, but the big part is 9 is the hard one to take down. And Tokoyami and Mina attack the girl, and at first I thought that since he was in a cave, I figured it would be, almost a pitch black cave, but minus that hole in the ground. It took Mina getting hurt, and Tokoyami flying into a rage for him to actually beat her, essentially. And also the cave kind of crumbling around them. But, yeah. Yeah, they're throwing everything they can at him. And he's just taking it all. And Deku and Bakugo end up fighting him after the others end up getting themselves knocked out. And thankfully, Kaminari had been there to take that electric attack, or else they probably would have gotten knocked out again. However, even using their best attacks, or at 100% for Deku, still wasn't enough. Deku realizes that only way to beat him is if he gives Bakugo one for all. And he essentially tells Bakugo this, and he tries to transfer it to him. It appears to work, and they end up kicking his ass. However, we know for a fact that this is not the case. That was just temporary. Oh, and with the other guy, Todoroki, Ida, Kirishima, and Sue take him on. And it took Todoroki having to freeze him almost sub-zero, and him almost being frozen stiff himself, to beat him. Anyway, the heroes end up realizing what's going on after the kid's dad wakes up and tells them about his quirk and everything, and they get the report about the hero attack with the SOS message that Momo had. It's mean. Anyway, they get there after the fact, and I found it hilarious that Endeavor was hugging Shoto and crying, and Shoto was like, "What the fuck is going on? Why am I here?" He's like, "Why are you doing this?" Or rather, he was probably more like, "Dad, you're embarrassing me. Put me down." But yeah, Deku thinks that he ended up losing one for all because he thought he transferred it to Bakugo, but it turns out that the Bakugo doesn't have it anymore, and Deku still got it. So it was only a temporary sharing of one for all, and yeah, Deku still got it. And obviously we knew that Deku still had one for all because of seasons 5 and 6. And, actually, now that I think about it, Season 6 could have hinted at this movie, considering when, Bakugo went to protect Deku from Shigaraki in Katsuki Bakugo Rising, that episode, his attacks kind of look like if he had had one for all, the rainbow-looking effect, essentially. That kind of reminded me of that. I was like, wait a minute, that kind of reminds me of... And now that I've seen this movie, maybe that there's a little, I guess, a whisper of that is still in Bakugo. To a degree, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah. Funny thing is that Nine survived that whole thing. The others got captured. He thinks that he's going to make it out of this, but Shigaraki shows up and disintegrates him, so bye-bye, Nine. Even if he had survived, I bet All For One would have shown up at some point and kicked his ass because he would have been trying to take his throne from him. So, haha, your dream would have been dead, either way. Anyway, if you guys have anything to say on this movie, let me know and I'll see y'all next time.